guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Today I'm in this 2008 VW Touareg. This is the first generation, which ran from 2003 until 2010. Being a used car dealer, I've had loads of these over the years, and one thing I've noticed is that nobody, and I mean nobody, knows how to pronounce the name properly. And it slightly annoys me. Touareg is the name of a group of nomadic Berber people from the Sahara. Touareg. Not Touareg, not Touareg, not Touareg, not Touareg. Touareg. It's not that hard, is it? I mean, I agree, it's a bit of a silly name for a car, but it's not as if they've named it after that village in Wales with all the L's. Anyway, the Touareg has been around since 2003 and it's been quite a hit for VW. So today I'm trying to figure out why. For me, I think it's a pretty good all-rounder. It does most jobs reasonably well, but it's not the best in its class at anything. So why should you buy one? I think most buyers of used Touaregs have bought them by accident. And what I mean by that is they've got a budget of 6, 7, 8 grand. They go down to the local car dealer and say, right, I'm looking for a Discovery or ML. What have you got? Well, we haven't got any of those at the moment, but we've got a Touareg. All right, yeah, I'll have one of those then. I can't imagine you aspiring to own one. I can't imagine anybody sat at home counting down the days until they pick up the new Touareg. I'm not saying it's a bad car, because it isn't. In fact, it was designed alongside the Porsche Cayenne, but it just lacks that premium feel and that upmarket badge that most of its rivals can offer. Styling wise, I think it looks alright. It's quite honest and subtle. It's not too ostentatious or flashy or vulgar. If I'm being super critical, I think it's a little bit too bulbous, a little bit too rounded. It almost looks like a new Beetle 4x4. Moving inside the Touareg, the interior looks quite nice, but when you start to poke and prod around, it's a bit cheap. Everything feels a little bit flimsy. It feels as though VW have cut some corners. The indicators feel like an afterthought. It all just feels like a bit of a rush job. There are some things I do like. This big, chunky, butch automatic gear selector feels as though you're in a Hummer H2. And all of the controls are big and chunky and easy to fathom. Even the clumsiest person with the fattest sausage fingers could still figure it all out. It's just when you really start to spend some time in it, everything you touch feels hollow. It just isn't quite what you'd expect for an expensive German car. It almost feels as though, no offence to anybody watching this on the other side of the pond, but it almost feels like an American car from the mid-noughties. Everything you touch squeaks and creaks. I must admit, I do like the layout. You've got 2 cup holders here. Everything's easy to reach. The visibility is excellent. The driving position is very commanding. I like the design of the steering wheel. I mean, it's not the prettiest thing to look at, but it's easy to sort of sit back and relax. It almost feels as though you're in a lazy boy. Overall, it just lacks any finesse or quality. Next up, you've got the smell. Now, all VWs from this era with a leather upholstery, they all smell the same. As soon as I got in this a couple of days ago, the smell immediately took me back to an old Jetta VR6 that I had in California many years ago. It's funny how a certain smell can evoke a certain memory. Being that the Touareg's a large 4x4, we should probably talk about its off-road credentials. They're permanent 4-wheel drive, and I'm told they're very good off-road. I suppose many other Touareg owners, have never actually driven one off-road, but it's nice to know that with a decent set of tyres, it would probably get you out of the rough stuff. There's plenty of interior space, there's plenty of storage space. You've got storage under here, under there, in the door pockets. There's plenty of leg room, plenty of headroom, plenty of elbow room, and it's the same story in the back. You can quite comfortably carry 4 passengers. Something else that's reassuring about the Touareg is that it scored top marks on its Euro NCAP safety rating. The seats are Isofix, so it's probably a safe place for your brood. The gauges and dials are all nicely laid out and easy to understand. The boot offers 555 litres of space, and you can fold down the rear seats in a 60-40 formation. So it's quite a practical car, this. It's also very good at towing. This 3-litre turbo diesel will tow 3.5 tonnes. If you opt for the 5-litre V10 turbo diesel, yes, you did hear me correctly, I said V10, that's 10 cylinders of torquey goodness. It can even tow a 747, which is good to know in case such an opportunity arises. I'll tell you what, I offer so much handy consumer advice. I really ought to start charging. In terms of running costs, just because this is a wholesome, down-to-earth, everyman Volkswagen, don't think that it's going to be cheap, because it won't be. This will cost you the same to run as a Range Rover. They have a tendency to chew through tyres, and they'll cost you £120 a corner. A full service will set you back about £350. Road tax here in the UK falls into the largest bracket of £600 a year. And in terms of fuel economy, if you go with this 3 litre diesel, you'll do 22, 23 miles per gallon around town and 33, 34 miles per gallon on a motorway run. So it isn't what you'd call economical. With regards to what it's like to drive, it's alright. Like I say, it does everything reasonably well. There's a bit of body roll when you push it in corners, as you might expect. The ride is alright. It does have a bit of a tendency to crash over bumps rather than absorb them. The gearbox is fairly smooth. The engine's got plenty of power. It goes back to what I was saying at the start. It's not as good to drive on-road as a BMW X5. It's not as good to drive off-road as a Range Rover Sport. The interior isn't as nice as a full-size Range Rover. It doesn't have an upmarket badge like a Mercedes ML, and it doesn't have the 7 seats like a Volvo XC90. So what the Touareg is the safe, middle-of-the-road choice. It's that Premier League club who always seem to hover around the middle of the table. This is basically Aston Villa, but with wing mirrors. One interesting thing about the Touareg is that there are loads of engines to choose from. Are you ready for this? There is a 2.5 turbo diesel, a 3 litre turbo diesel. There was later a turbo diesel V8. There's a 5 litre V10 turbo diesel. There's a 3.2 petrol V6. Later there was a 3.6 petrol V6. There was a 4.2 petrol V8. And even a 6 litre petrol W12. How's that for choice? There's more choice there than an all-you-can-eat buffet at a posh hotel. If you're genuinely considering buying a Touareg, and you just take one piece of information from this video, let it be this. You really must go for the 3 litre turbo diesel V6. It's by far the best all-rounder. The earlier 5-cylinder 2.5 turbo diesels were a bit underpowered. They just seem to turn diesel into noise, and a lot of noise actually. You put your foot down and all that would happen would be the revs would surge, and you wouldn't actually go anywhere any quicker. This 3 litre V6 is much more like it. It pulls like a train. It just feels as though it'll never run out of steam. It feels relentless. Overall, it's just more refined, quicker, smoother, and better on fuel. You could have bought the Touareg as an automatic like this one, which uses a big old-fashioned torque converter, so it's nice and smooth. Or you could have bought it as a manual. Now, I've had a few manuals, and you might curl your nose up at a manual 4x4, but they're actually quite involving to drive. It's a bit like a manual Discovery 3. Every time I drive one, I just enjoy it somehow. In terms of reliability, they're a bit of a mixed bag. I've had several issues over the years, but those issues haven't been any different to any other diesel aging four-wheel drive. You know, issues such as EGR valves, turbos, engine oil leaks, things like that. They're all standard really on this type of car. The 3 litre turbo diesel has a timing chain, and it's the same engine that's used in the Q7. And when you start it from cold, if you hear a rattle for about 5 or 10 seconds, that could be a sign that the chain's on its way out, and that will cost you a couple of grand. It was the first thing I checked on this particular one, having been caught out in the past, and thankfully it was as quiet as a church mouse. Whilst we're on the subject of faults, this one's got a bit of a weird fault. I've got the air conditioning set to cold on both sides, and yet the driver's side is ice cold, and the passenger side is hot. So if any of you have had that situation, let me know in the comments, because I need to get that fixed, and I haven't got a clue what it could be. I had a Touareg a few years ago that had an annoying battery drain. Every couple of days it would just be completely flat. It turned out to be a faulty ECU. Now, the ECUs on these are stored in a place where water collects, and as you know, water and electrics don't mix. Luckily, I found a used ECU with matching part numbers, which was just a plug-and-play job from eBay for about £300. And that's the good thing about these cars now, because they've made so many of them, and they're now at that age where they're starting to appear in many scrapyards, parts are quite easy to come by, and they're not too expensive either. Used prices here in the UK start at around £3,000, but to be honest, you need to spend around double that to get yourself a decent one. I would look for one with sub 100,000 miles with good service records, evidence of a gearbox service and recent engine service. That's what I would look for. Well, I think that pretty much sums up the MK1 VW Touareg. There are just as many pros as cons. After all that, I still can't really see the appeal. It does a pretty good job at most things, but there are other cars that I would have over this every single day of the week. That said, if you need a large, fairly luxurious 4x4 to tow something with, and you've got a budget of less than £10,000, and you can't be bothered travelling all over the country or doing an awful lot of research, then it wouldn't be the end of the world. So thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. If you've got any comments or questions, let me know and I'll do my best to get back to you. So yeah, cheers guys. I'll see you next time.